the 3 dating tendencies is a framework that I put together when I felt like I was working with all these different clients, and each one was really different. And they felt like they had, this unique set of problems. But then I was like, honestly, they all seem to fit into this same idea of having unrealistic expectations. And so the 3 dating tendencies is a way of organizing that. So the first one is the romanticizer. And these are people who have unrealistic expectations of relationships. And so they feel like, all right, it's going to be love at first sight. It's going to be the soulmate. I'll know it when I see it. And there's a feeling of really an emphasis on the we met, how we met story. There's an emphasis on the way the person looks. And it's really an unrealistic view of relationships, expecting it to be really easy. And there's a feeling of, oh, it's getting hard. This must not be my soulmate. I'll break up with this person. And then the second one is the maximizer, and they have unrealistic expectations of their partner. And so I know a ton of people like this, and they're always saying things like, oh, I like her, but could she be 10% hotter? Could he be 10% more ambitious? There's always a feeling of like, I want to take the best parts of this X and this X and this X and put it together. And there's a feeling of, if I just keep looking, then I'll find the perfect person. And then the last type is the hesitator. And these people have unrealistic expectations of themselves. And they feel like, I'm just not lovable yet. I need to lose weight. I need a more impressive job. I need to move out of my parents' house, whatever it is. It's like, when this happens, then I can date. And so they end up not putting themselves out there at all.
And which one are you?
So why I really like these 3 dating tendencies is because, Logan, you have a quiz, and I recommend everyone takes the dating tendency quiz, because I thought I was a romanticizer when I was reading the book, and then I stopped and took the quiz, and I'm a full-blown maximizer because I was lying to myself. I'm like, no, it's just because I want a fairy tale. It's like, no, because I truly always think there's something better out there for myself. And I mean, people listening to this podcast, hopefully you fall into one of the 3, and that can kind of let you know maybe why you aren't finding love. So, I mean, do you guys see that for me?
Oh, totally.
Oh my God. There was this thing that she wrote that I was like, this is Jordan. What did it say?
We made eye contact.
She's obsessed with the meat cute or something. We literally had an episode about that. So
yeah, the meat cute, man. And that's why I thought I was a romanticizer, because I tell these guys all the time, I just want a story to tell my friends. And I was obsessed with the story, and that's why I didn't want to go on the dating apps, because I was like, I just want a fun story to tell my friends. But how can people get out of these tendencies? Do you have any tips or tricks to get people away from that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I can go through tips and tricks for each of them. And even the we met, the being obsessed with we met, reminds me of this person that I was coaching recently. So I teach these dating classes, and this woman was maybe the most intense romanticizer I'd ever met. Everything was a story. It was her sister and her sister and her husband had met when they were in high school. So she's like, I'm already not going to get the high school sweetheart thing. I'm already so behind. And then it was this bad thing happened to me, but here's the story around it. And everything was so much narrative. And I was like, if that's the way your brain works, where you're always putting a story behind something, you can make up a story about the next person you meet. Oh, we met on the apps, but it was so crazy because he had just restarted his app. It's your brain actually is working in your favor a lot of the time. And it's if she was so obsessed with cause and effect, there's always a way to see a story there. And so for romanticizers, the main thing I say is that, who cares about how you met? If you're together for 50 years, the day you met is 0.0055% of the total time that you'll be together. It's just pretty irrelevant. And thinking about long-term, what do you want? You want a strong partnership. You want a teammate for life. There's so many more important things than this feeling of how we met and that it has to be my soulmate. And there's a lot of people who you could build a great life with. You just get to choose which person and which life you build together. So for the romanticizer, it's taking out that rom-com Disney influence and just saying hey, you're a grown-up, build your own story, write the love and life story that you want. So that's for the romanticizer. The maximizer, which Jordan, it sounds like you are, is really about understanding that there's no such thing as a perfect person. And I think 27 is actually a very interesting age for this. You live in New York, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I've done a lot of research with women in this age group in New York. And I feel like this interesting thing happens where, people women in their 20s feel like there's always going to be an infinite number of guys that are coming their way. And then this woman described it to me as like when she turned 30, she felt like there was this game of like marriage musical chairs and like all the people got scooped up and she didn't realize this. And so Lori Gottlieb, if you've heard of her book, Marry Him, she talks about this where it's like when we're in our 20s, we reject guys for things that in our 30s we wouldn't worry about. And there's this feeling of like, oh, there'll always be so many people around. And like, unfortunately, that's not true. Like people do get married off. There is a lot of bias in terms of men dating younger women. And so I feel like 27 is the perfect age to make a change around this and be like, what I need to do is to say, what are the things that matter to me? So maybe for you, it's like good relationship with family, loyal, trustworthy, super fun. What are the things that I can care a little bit less about? So maybe, I mean, I don't know you at all, but maybe it's like height and hobbies in common. And so double down on the things that really matter and care less about the things that don't, because if you just keep searching for that perfect person, eventually a lot of good people do get partnered up, and then you are left with a smaller pool and you're like, oh, I wish I dated that guy when I was, wish I'd married that guy from when I was 26. Like he was so great. I rejected him because he wore socks with sandals or like whatever it was. And so really having that moment of maturity to be like, let me know the things that matter and the things that don't. And then finally for the hesitator, it's just about getting out there. It's like, sure, maybe you should lose weight because that'll make you feel more confident. Maybe it doesn't matter at all. Like understanding that that's not blocking you from finding love. That's a story that you're telling yourself. And if you feel like you want to work on going to therapy or cleaning your apartment, do that in parallel with dating. The most important thing is that you get better at dating by dating. And so you need to put yourself out there to make that happen.
I love that. I'm a hesitator.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I like that. But so I have a question for you about you, because
let's hear it.
She's such the maximizer, but you have I love how you said the way to get out of that is like pick a couple things that matter to you, and you have the chapter called Fuck the Spark, I think.
Yes.
And so picking like the meet cutes, things like that. Will you talk a little bit about why it's Fuck the Spark, why forget about the meet cute?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, like you write a book, you're sitting alone in your house, you don't know what's going to resonate, but this has definitely become kind of like the tagline of the book, Fuck the Spark. And it's because I think it's such a common thing right now. Like, I think we've all gone on dates and said this or talked to friends and said it, where it's like, I met this guy, he's so nice, we really hit it off, not going to see him again, just didn't feel the spark. And so the spark has become this all-encompassing phrase that means like butterflies and unicorns and the whole world stopped. And it's like we expect that it's only our right partner if we feel that. And there's just tons of evidence that that's not true. So the first thing is many people don't feel love at first sight, and relationships grow over time when you work together or you live near someone or your friends. The second thing is that sometimes the sparkiest people, the people that really give us that feeling, they're super hot, they're narcissistic. Guess what? They give that feeling to everyone. And like even though I'm married, I still have this where I'm like, whoa, like I felt a connection to that person. And then I'm like, every other girl I know also feels that way about that guy. He's really sparky. And when you can kind of change your mentality, you're like, A, he could be really narcissistic and gives that feeling to everyone. And B, maybe it's actually anxiety. And I'm confusing that anxiety for butterflies. I think that's like a major aha moment. And then the third thing is that lots of people who have the spark end up getting divorced because it's enough to like get your engine going, but it's not enough to maintain a relationship. You need so much more than the spark. And so when people say to me, I just didn't feel the spark, I'm like, fuck the spark, go after the slow burn.
No, like, Logan, you have no idea when I read
Tell me.
So I've dated a lot of people. I've dated a series of different types of people, but I have dated a large amount of fuckboys or narcissists.
Okay, yeah.
And doing my like research of all the people I've dated, I'm like, okay, Jordan, all the guys, and I challenge all our listeners to think this too, all the people who gave me like that really exciting spark or like that I need to see them right now were guys who treated me like crap, or it didn't work out, or that they were like that narcissist or fuckboy. And then the guys that were really good guys, I didn't have that initial spark with, but I didn't allow that slow burn to happen because I thought if you didn't have a spark after 1 or 2 dates, they were a waste of your time. So it was very eye-opening.